Hey there, you boob, it's me, it's Uncle Murray. Now, if you've been watching my videos, you probably noticed that I like the Bible. And I don't just like the Bible, I mean I love the Bible. And not only do I love reading all of them stories, all straightforward like, but I love piecing together all of that stuff and kind of making like Columbo and figuring out a bunch of this stuff that's real easy to miss if you ain't paying attention. So for example, it says that Adam and Eve disobeyed God and they ate the fruit that he said not to eat, and that they tried making clothes for themselves out of leaves, but they wasn't no good, so God made them clothes out of animal skins. Did you get that? Animal skins. That means that God must have killed an animal or two to make them clothes, and that means that innocent blood was shed to atone for Adam and Eve's sins. Does that sound familiar? Well, when you fast forward a little bit, God's people sacrificed animals to atone for their sins. And when you fast forward to the Gospels, Jesus sheds his innocent blood to atone for the sins of all mankind once and for all. So when God does that for Adam and Eve with the animal skins, it's kind of like, the foreshadowing, as the kids say. But when you're reading Genesis, it don't come right out and explain it in so many words, you know. You gotta piece it together. And if a dumbo like me can notice something like that, well, if you pay attention, you can too, because like I always say, I'm kind of smart, but I'm also stupid. But another thing I like doing, you know, just kind of for fun and curiosity, is paying real close attention to the stuff that's written, and then Columbo-atizing a little more and trying to figure out stuff that ain't written down or talked about in the Bible. Here, I'll give you another example. In Genesis chapter 5, verses 3 to 5, it says, "And Adam lived 130 years and begat a son in his own likeness after his image, and called his name Seth. And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died." And it does that with a whole bunch of other people like that. You know, how old they was when they had a kid, and how long after they had a kid that they lived, and if they had any other unnamed kids, and then how old they was when they died, right? And so if you do all of the math, you can make a timeline like this, see? I made my own in my notebook, but this one looks a whole lot better than the one I made. And it's interesting to see it like this, because when you're just reading the Bible all regular like, it ain't so clear. But when you look at it like this here chart, where it shows the lives of people as colored bars, well, when them bars overlap each other, that means that them people was alive at the same time, see? Okay, so then I started looking at this, and my brain starts ticking, and I says to myself, oh, well, look at that. Of all the fellas listed in the begat list, Noah was the first fella born after Adam died. But it says that Noah's old man, Lamech, was the last fella that was born before Adam died. Well, then I thought, wait a sec. Adam and Lamech were both alive at the same time for 56 years. So that would mean that technically it's possible that Noah's old man Lamech could have heard stories about the beginning of humanity straight from Adam himself. Yeah, it's completely possible that when Lamech was a little kid, that Methuselah and his wife would take him over to Adam and Eve's house for a little visit once in a while, you know? You know, they'd get there, and Eve would probably be in the kitchen making a casserole or something. And little Lamech would sit on his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather's knee and hear all sorts of stories and ask him all sorts of questions. You know, like,
Hey, 7 times grandfather, what's that scar on your side from?
Ask your 7 times grandmother.
And then Eve yells from the kitchen,
I didn't do that. You're always blaming that on me. Hey, 7 times grandfather, is it true that the first bite of a piece of fruit has always been the sweetest?
Hey, you want to take this one, Evie?
Why don't you tell him what the second bite tasted like?
Oh, touche, honey, touche.
Hey, you want a little side dish with your casserole?
Oh, you know you're the only side dish for me.
Oh, you smooth talker.
Not as smooth as somebody else, apparently.
Why do you always gotta ruin it by bringing that up?
and then maybe Adam would say to Methuselah,
Hey, Thuziq, why don't you ask your 7 times grandmother about the clothes she made for us?
Then Methuselah would say to Eve, hey, yeah, I always wondered about that. Leaves? I mean, clothes out of leaves? I mean, what were you guys thinking? I mean, didn't you guys know them things was gonna dry out? And then you'd be all crunchy when you was walking around the garden. And then one night of cuddling a little too close to the fire and foof, up the both of you'd go. Nah, I'm just being silly. They probably wasn't asking them kinds of questions, but they probably did ask a bunch of other questions. Like, what did the serpent look like? Or what was your favorite food in the garden? Or what kind of crops did Cain grow? Or what was the first song that Jubal played on his harp or his organ? You know, stuff like that. You know, I'd love to ask Adam and Eve a whole bunch of questions. You know, I'd ask them stuff like, what was life like before sin? You know, what was it like to not have no idea what sin was? And what was it like when things changed? You know, did things feel any different? Did things physically change right in front of your eyes or something? You know, because Adam and Eve was the only two people ever to experience both kinds of existence. They had the experience of living in sinless perfection, and they also experienced living in a sinful world like all the rest of us do. But they're the only two that have ever experienced both. And it's interesting, too, that Noah and his family experienced something a little similar, kinda, you know, after the flood. They was the only people, 8 of them, who remember what the world was like before the flood. They don't remember a world without sin like Adam and Eve did, but sin started with 2 people, and then after the flood, it continued again with 8 people. But anyways, this is the kind of stuff that, for me, it's real interesting to think about. You know, by kind of playing Columbo, and how much can you know for sure, and what kind of stuff do you just kind of got to wonder about that, like, musta or could have happened, you know, but we'll never know for sure. Well, at least not till we get to heaven to ask all them kinds of questions there. Hey, what kind of questions do you think that you would have asked Adam and Eve if you could have been around to talk with them? Let me know in the comments down below. I bet you could come up with some pretty good ones. Well, I think maybe the next video will be kind of like this thing, but about Noah and the flood and what happened after and all of that. So we got that to look forward to, which is nice, I think. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and I hope it was interesting to you. And if you liked it, could you please subscribe and share this with all of your pals? Because I could really use all the help with this here channel. Okay, so that's it, and that's all, and I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye-bye.